Thank you for watching the Whittemore Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.
The message came up and said, it's time for broadcast. Good evening to our guests and good evening to our viewers here. I'm your host, Ed McQueen, and today, it was a beautiful day today all around weather-wise, so I'll start off by saying that, but it's going to be even better once we get to know a little bit more about our guests and the our university that exists, that's serving us here well in Horry County and beyond. We want to welcome all of our viewers. We are going to see what the community can get from today's broadcast involving our central college university that's interacts with the community in a well-deserved way, and just hired a new president, and that's the president at Coastal Carolina University. My co-host, Sister April Garner, will be with us today, and April is as we came on, our guest, Dr. Michael Benson, said that he was sandwiched between the two of us. So let's just go easy on him. So, because he may be looking for some mustard and mayonnaise, so that's so to our audience and April, welcome, Dr. Benson, and I'm sure the community is going to be welcoming a valuable asset to the community. And after reading your background and bio, you can't help but saying that just that. Okay, so we're anxious to get on with our program. And April, as usual, you can chime in whenever you want to. I just want to start off by thanking your VP for executive initiatives. That's Mr. Travis Overton. Mm-hmm. Communications was dynamite, very professional act, and very effective. That was to me, that was an attraction that I think anybody who's in business would want, and that's one of the pillars of success in business, and that is communication. And Travis did just that by coordinating this and having you to come on our program. So thank you very much, Travis, Mr. Overton, that we've been exchanging emails with. So we'll get on. So Dr. Benson, we've had a few questions and from various people in the community once they found out that you were going to be on, of course. And we welcome our guests to go ahead and send us comments in. And I'd like to, and just so that things will run smoothly, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, I think the audience would be grateful for that.
Well, first off, Edward, and to your co-host April, thank you so much. I know April works at the community college right next door, Horry Georgetown, and we're proud partners with them in so many ways, and the neighbors. And Edward and I were visiting beforehand, it's a real compliment to you that you do this community service by having folks on, and I'm absolutely ecstatic and delighted to be with you tonight. I'd echo what you said too, Edward, that I'm so fortunate to have Travis. Travis keeps me on time and on point and at the right place at the right time. So a shout out to Travis. I think he might be listening tonight. Just by way of background, very briefly, I grew up all over. I was born in Utah, grew up in Texas and Indiana. In 6 years of elementary school, I went to 5 different schools. So as the youngest of 6 children, my parents really imbued in each of their children an appreciation for opportunities. I didn't grow up with a whole lot. My mom did not graduate from college. She was from a small farming community in Raymond, Alberta, Canada, and immigrated to the United States, had dual citizenship in both Canada and the U.S., but really wanted to ensure that her 6 children were given opportunities that she and my dad never had. And that included the privilege of going to college. And I had that chance for a period of my life from age 19 to about 29. Out of that decade in my life, I spent 7 years, almost 7 years outside the United States, 2 years in Italy, a year and a half in the Middle East and Israel, and 3 years in England. And those experiences, particularly in the Middle East, where I lived in Jerusalem, being surrounded by different people from different walks of life and different beliefs and different orientations, I can't tell you what that meant to me in terms of forming my own worldview and an appreciation for the beautiful tapestry that is the world in which we live. And I vowed at that time that I wanted to, after I came back from 2 years in Italy, I wanted to live in 5 different cities by the age of 30. And I wasn't sure how I was going to live in these 5 cities, but I made this list of 5 cities. And the cities were Rome, Jerusalem, London, Washington, D.C., and New York. And again, I'm not exactly sure how I arrived at those 5 cities, but I'm happy to say that I've lived in each of those except New York for at least a year and a half. That gave me, again, a perspective that has helped shape my worldview in a way that I don't think I could have gotten any other way. I love to travel. I'm the father of 5 children. 2 are in college, and 3 will be coming with my wife Debbie and me to Horry County when we settle here. They are currently in Kentucky, finishing the school year at the Model Laboratory School at Eastern Kentucky University, and it's really hard to pull kids out of school mid-year. So the 13, 12, and 10-year-old will be joining me here. I'm here in my apartment. You may have heard I tested positive last week for COVID, so it's kind of lonely here. But people have been so kind and reached out and said, "Can we drop off groceries or a gallon of milk?" And I'm doing fine. I just am so blessed that I had access to a test and have the wherewithal where I can isolate and stay away from others and make sure I recover. But more importantly, the people with whom I came in contact the last week or so have all tested negative too. So I'm very happy about that. Just to wrap up, Edward, and I'll look forward to your and April's questions. I had a chance to study several different subjects when I was in school, but my doctorate is in Middle Eastern history. And that's led to kind of an insatiable desire to learn as much as I can about as many things as I can. So just a couple classes shy of finishing another master's degree at Johns Hopkins in liberal arts. And it's given me a chance to take classes in those areas I've always wanted to study. I took a class on the history of the Civil War, one on World War I, the social history of medicine, the mind of Leonardo da Vinci, one on the classics. This semester I have leadership in the classics, medieval England, and it's just reinforced again in my mind how important it is to stay curious. There's a Walt Whitman phrase that I love. He said, "Don't be judgmental, be curious." And that to me really sums up my attitude. I love learning about people and what makes them tick and what's shaped them and their worldview. And I am so privileged to work at a place like Coastal Carolina that for nearly 75 years now has meant so much to this community. We have our 75th anniversary coming up in 2029. So I think you'll hear us talk a lot about that really historic mile marker in our institutional arc in history. So with that, I know I kind of rambled a little bit. As I mentioned, I have 4 sisters and a brother. My older brother is a political cartoonist. He won a Pulitzer Prize for being as smart alecky as he is. He's very good at what he does. And among all of us, the 6 kids, we have 34 children. So I have 5, if I said, of my own, but I have a sister with 8, another sister with 6. And so we're a large, prodigious family. And it's great when we all get together. And I hope once COVID has passed us, we can get back together again. But, important things in my life are my faith, my family, and my friends. Those are the things that really make me tick and make my life so rich. So again, thank you for the chance to be with you today.
I really wanted to bring up about your bout with the COVID virus since you had gotten it in the introduction, but I thought it was best that I let you bring it out, and you did. So further on, we'll probably come up with some questions, I guess, regarding how the COVID virus is going to affect the strategies of Coastal Carolina University, the future strategies for the growth and how it's going to impact the community. Having said that, I do want to revert to something that you may have touched base on, and that is basically, and I hope it's not because of our championship football team, but why did you choose the conference?
Well, I have to confess, Edward, I know a lot about Coastal Carolina because I was in Eastern Kentucky, and back in 2014, 2015, we had heard that there was going to be one slot open up in the Sun Belt Conference. And so we got together at Eastern Kentucky and said, hey, we're going to make our very best pitch forward and put our best face forward and see if we can get that final spot. So we tried to spruce up campus and put some more resources into various things, into facilities, et cetera. And it came down, as you know, for that spot to New Mexico State, Eastern Kentucky, and Coastal Carolina. And we had the disadvantage at Eastern Kentucky that Coastal was the last campus they visited. And I know that when they got here to Conway and they saw that you're 20 miles from the beach and the campus is so beautiful and the facilities are new and shiny. And, a few months later, after they got the invitation, they won the World Series in baseball. So the timing was absolutely impeccable for them. So I joke, Edward, that if you can't beat them, you got to join them. So I decided that we wanted to cast our lot with Coastal Carolina. And I got to know David DeCenza. We were on an NCAA committee together. And by the way, I should say my mother taught me to be magnanimous in both victory and defeat. So one of the first phone calls I made when the decision was made that we didn't get in, but Coastal did, I called David and I said, I wish you all the best. You've got a great school and congratulations. And as fate would have it, David and I stayed in touch, and he told me about his imminent retirement and asked if I'd be interested. And I was in the midst of writing a book. I just finished the book, a biography of Daniel Coit Gilman, the first president of Johns Hopkins University. And so I was, at the time, I wasn't kind of inclined to apply, but as I thought more about it, I talked to my wife. She said, hey, that's a part of the country we love. We love coming to South Carolina. I've been all over this United States, and I don't think I've met nicer people than South Carolinians. And it just so happened that things worked out, and we believe God has a plan for each of us, and this is our time at this moment, at this place, and we really want to take advantage of the opportunity and do all we can to help.
That's great. That's great. April, you can chime in whenever you want to, dear.
Well, I actually am. It's so fascinating to hear your story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking to myself as you were talking, and especially about your worldview, I'm thinking, how in the world did he have time to do all of that? How do these opportunities present themselves? And yet it is so apropos because, Coastal Carolina is more than just a community college. It's international. Yeah. And, you're coming in with leadership that is also rooted in a world view, a world perspective. You've traveled, you've seen other cultures, you've visited with other people, and you understand a lot of things. And so I think that it sounds like Coastal is going to be very fortunate to have you there because it definitely creates a different type of flavor, I would say, especially since I'm sure your student body is comprised of a lot of different types of students and faculty members who are coming from all walks of life. So, as Brother Edward asked you, why CCU? My question is, when you arrived on campus and you saw, everything that was to see on campus, including the students. I saw some of your orientation videos and things where you were able to meet some of the students. What was like your second impression? The first, you said it in the video, if this is heaven, something like, if this is heaven, it may be close to it or something. What was your second impression after meeting some of the students?
Well, you're exactly. I said, if this ain't heaven, it's awfully close.
That's it. Yes, exactly.
You know, the day I pulled up to campus, it was just one of those sparkling, crisp winter mornings. The sun was coming up, and it just was kind of almost like a postcard. And you know, you're right. A place is just bricks and mortar. The campus is beautiful, as I said, but what makes it an institution are the people, and specifically the students. And I prepared a note that's going to go out to campus the next couple of days about we have to remind ourselves all the time that none of us is here as a staff or a faculty member. Same goes for you, April. Were it not for students. And universities exist to, yes, discover, to develop, to implement, to apply knowledge for the betterment of society. But the way we do that, of course, is through research and development of that new knowledge, but it's through teaching the next generation. It's through teaching students who then will go on and we hope make a difference in the world. So to give you just an illustration, because I love your lead in there, April, about how you step foot on Coastal, you'll see people from all over the world. I was driving back into campus on Wednesday, so I got my positive test on Thursday, so I still didn't know what was going on. So Wednesday I was masked. I was making my way around campus, and I noticed the soccer team was out practicing on their soccer pitch. So I thought, I'll pull in, I'll say hi to Coach Docking. Coach Docking wasn't there, but there are a few players kind of milling about on the sidelines. And as I parked my car, I walked out, and here came a student athlete walking up, and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he said, I'm well, thank you. How are you? And I could tell there was a bit of an accent. I said, "Tell me where you're from." He said, "I'm from Israel." I said, "You're from Israel?" And I said, I lived on a kibbutz in northern Israel. I studied at the Hebrew University. Turns out this young man is a 23-year-old freshman who is on our soccer team. He's 23 because he did 3 years of mandatory military service in the Israeli army and came here to play soccer. And I thought, man, what are the chances of meeting a young man who's come here for his education? He has a sister or a cousin, rather, that lives in Florida. But I asked him how he enjoyed it. He said, "I love it here. I love how welcoming people are, and I love the environment." And that's not a unique story. I could probably regale you with more stories of students that I've met from South Carolina, from the East Coast, from out west. I met a student from Denver, Colorado on Monday, who is here studying marine biology. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of atmosphere we're trying to engender and create at Coastal, where everybody feels welcome. Everybody feels like it's a place where they can succeed and be themselves and be valued for who they are. And I appreciate parents that taught me that we're all sons and daughters of God, and we all have a purpose in life. And our job really is to respect each other and help each other. There's so much bad in the world. And if we can, on our campus, be in many ways, a city on a hill, and be a beacon of hope and light for people, that's what it's all about. And that's why I love a place like Coastal, where it means so much to so many people and to this community.
Well, if I wasn't a student, I'd want to be, because you have totally sold it. And I know that, one of the statements in your strategic plan, your mission and value statement is all about being the university of choice. And I think that has become definitely a key factor here, especially in this community, because once upon a time, of course, and Brother Edward, you can, definitely help me out with this, but it was a part of the University of South Carolina system. And now it's developed its own identity, its own brand, has just jumped by leaps and bounds just in the past few years. It's amazing how much Coastal has grown and just kind of developed its own personality, and, Teal Nation and everything that, is all about the rah-rah surrounding it. And so I can understand why people will take a look at what the university has to offer and want to find out more. And of course, being by the beach is not a bad thing. You got it all wrapped up in a great package.
Well,
I agree.
I guess the beach is a very, very big attraction. Coming from Utah, we got lakes. The biggest, biggest thing of water is the biggest lake, and that's in Salt Lake City, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but,
sir.
getting on your experience in the past, what have you had in the past as a university president? Can you share that that helped you to understand the mindset of different cultures and values?
That's a really great question. I got my start at the University of Utah working in fundraising. So I began I had finished my doctorate at Oxford, and here I thought the world was at my feet and I couldn't find a job to save my life. So I've always been fairly good at sales. My father was a cookware salesman his whole career. And, the one thing I believe can transform a life more than anything else is education. So I got involved in fundraising at the University of Utah that led me to working for the president there. He was a pediatric dentist who had come from Michigan, a native of Mississippi, but I worked for him at Utah, and then he became the president of the University of Florida. So same as Bernie Matchett, we've stayed friends for ever since the early 2000s when I went to work for him. My first presidency I was young, I was 36, and it was at a 2-year school in central Utah. And April, you work at a 2-year school, and I am a huge believer that the kind of higher education ecosystem in the United States is the envy of the world. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is there are points of entry for people along a really broad spectrum based on what you're inclined, what you're predisposed, what your interests are. So you may want to be a welder. You may want to be the best pipe fitter or the best lab technician or the best registered nurse or the best neurosurgeon and all points in between. And you could find access through our community colleges, through our state universities, through our private schools, through our large regional public universities in the United States. And so my 2-year experience really taught me the value of taking that student that maybe not quite ready to take on a full load, or maybe they're not sure they want to do. You got to get what I call your academic sea legs under you. And look, we all changed majors. We all kind of dabble in this or that. I changed my major 4 or 5 times. After one anatomy class, I knew medicine wasn't for me. After an accounting class, I knew accounting or statistics wasn't for me. So I finally found my home in history. And I really am a huge believer in the importance of 2-year schools and 4-year schools, creating as seamless as a relationship as possible for the benefit of students. That maybe if they want to finish after 2 years and go get a job or certificate, great. If they want to transfer to a place like Coastal, how have we make it as seamless as possible to make sure those courses transfer, to make sure they get advising on both ends, on both places, to make sure they are getting advice as it relates to Pell Grants and Stafford loans and financial aid and scholarships. So that was a really seminal event for me. From there, I became a president of a 4-year school in Southern Utah, Southern Utah University, which Edward, you've been to Utah in the southern part of the state. It's red rocks and 6,000 feet of high desert where we lived. Within about a 90-mile drive of our home were 5 national parks. The north rim of the Grand Canyon was about 2.5 hours away. So I really came to appreciate the relationship that we had with the national parks. We became the university of choice for the national parks. So every place has its niche. Every place has its own kind of unique offerings. We then got recruited out to Eastern Kentucky, where for a place like Richmond, Kentucky, half of our students were Pell eligible and 40% were first-generation college students. So at graduation, when I would ask all the first-generation college students to stand up, I still get emotional thinking about it because all those parents were there and the families and the cousins and all those people that had sacrificed so their son or daughter or granddaughter, grandson could go to college and change their life. And we had a wonderful time in Kentucky. And then, of course, coming to a place like Coastal Carolina. So, my 26 years has always been in public higher education. I've gone to private schools, but I'm a huge believer in access is the most important. Affordability is the most important aspect of American higher education. If we close that door of opportunity, George Washington Carver said, education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. That's one of my favorite quotes. Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. And I'm a huge believer in a role that a place like Coastal Carolina plays in this community and providing opportunities for generations, but also for students outside of our state. I will say, as you touched on, April, I'll finish with this. We want to become the school of choice for South Carolinians. I think a lot of students think, well, if I can't get into Clemson or South Carolina, then Coastal might be a good fallback for me. We want them to think of our honors program, our marine biology, our hard sciences, our teacher ed program. Nursing, of course, is done by places like Francis Marion and engineering at other places of medicine and law. But we want to be, for South Carolinians, particularly those students in North County that want to stay, we want to be their school of their first school of choice.
I'll get to this point of the economic status of Horry County in general. We're not the wealthiest around here, but so what would you do differently at Coastal that would make it make the student body increase? And because I'm just assuming that you still have families who can come up and say, we just don't have the money to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you do differently? And, and how would you show an improved, a markedly improvement on attracting and making those families aware that Coastal Carolina can find a way for them to get an education, a higher education?
Very good question. First thing, again, this year, I think it may be the second or third year in a row that we're keeping our tuition and fees at the same level. We're not going to have any sort of increases. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there may be some increases in housing or food costs. That's just kind of responsive to the market, but we're holding our tuition where it is. So we want to make sure it's affordable. As you can appreciate, we charge more for out-of-state tuition, but for in-state students, through whether it's a Pell Grant, whether it's a Stafford loan, whether it's a departmental or a college scholarship, need-based financial aid, my message to students is fill out that FAFSA. And I tip my hat to Lamar Alexander, the senator in Tennessee, who has announced his retirement. But his quest, as he finishes up his public service, is to simplify the FAFSA. And I heard him speak in April. You know what I'm talking about. He held it up, and it went from the top of his arm all the way down to the floor. And for a lot of students who maybe are not from a home where they know much about the FAFSA, or they haven't gone through the process, that could be a terribly daunting, intimidating process. So what can we do to help students on the front end make sure that they know about the financial aid opportunities? Number two, get that form filled out. Number three, they come to campus and they meet with advisors. They meet with our admissions team. They meet with our student services team. And they know that when they come to a place like Coastal, it's one thing to get a student in the door. Believe me, we spend a lot of time and effort and expend a lot of resources getting them through the door. But it's even more important what happens once they're on campus. You create that network of support around them, whether it's in the residence halls, whether it's through a student group or a religious group or a fraternity or sorority or service organization. They have a community around them that is there to help them and support them. But to your point, Edward, we have to make sure people know, number one, it's affordable. Number two, it's accessible. And number three, once they set foot on campus, we're going to do everything we can to help them be successful.
So, go ahead. So in your stay so far, have you come to make a decision, or has there been a case where you've been confronted with people who are saying, well, it needs to be easier to get in? Okay. Have you been confronted with that yet?
I don't know. If I understand you correctly, I want to make sure I understand the question. Easier in the sense of the process, or the process?
Yeah, right.
Okay, yeah. No, you're exactly right. We don't want to kind of lower our standards in the sense that we want to make sure students, if they're ready, they come to Coastal. Maybe they need a little time to get acclimated and get some of those general education courses out of the way, but we want to make sure they're in a position to be successful. But you're exactly right. What can we do to make sure the process is as streamlined and accessible, and that the help is all the way along the way, those important markers as a student progresses along that path, that we're there to help them. So, those that are listening tonight, if they have a son or a daughter or a friend or a family member, please reach out to us. We're here to help, and we're here to make sure they're successful.
President Benson, there was an article released by Wiley Education Services, and it was about the top challenges facing U.S. higher ed institutions.
Uh-huh.
To piggyback on what you were talking about as far as affordability and accessibility and, easier processes, I think that you can agree that one of the things that also is a little daunting for, we'll talk about maybe the traditional student, since you probably have a very high population of traditional students. One of the things that is happening is that there seems to be fewer high school graduates, and that's becoming more of a challenge as we look to the future and try to figure out, how to keep the pipeline to higher education robust and full.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of the conversations that we've had across higher education circles has to do with the career planning process, the career exploration process, and how do we, get students interested and keep them interested in developing careers and, going into the collegiate atmosphere, whether it's a 2-year college or 4-year college, to make sure they meet the goals that they set out to fulfill in life. And I know that you're Travis said to me, now be easy on him. He's only 25 days in, but I'm sure that, in your 26 years, and your world travels, you probably thought about the fact that it's not going to be a gravy train all the time. And even I've seen my short term at Horry Georgetown Tech that it's kind of, there have been many ebbs and flows where enrollment was great and through the roof, and then it just it's kind of leveled off, and now we're turning over every rock and pushing back every bush to see whether or not there are possibilities out there, and to make sure we've done exactly what you said, which is to show the student, as much great customer service as we can to get them through the door. So with the challenge of enrollment, and especially with what's happening with our secondary schools, and that, the high school levels are kind of lessening over time, what are some of the things that you can envision CCU might be able to do to help meet that challenge?
Well, first off, some really great insights on your part. I kid you not, April, I think yesterday, reading an article about pre-COVID and the recovery in our economy that, of course, before this time last year stalled out a little bit, but it showed the percentage of jobs that were created, what percentage of those jobs required some kind of post-secondary training. So to your point, either a certificate, 2-year degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree. And the article was that this was a kind of bifurcated recovery. It was good for some people and not very good for other people. And the ones that wasn't very good for were those that did not have access to that post-secondary training. So I think top of mind has to be at a place like Coastal Carolina. What are we doing to reach out to, I'm not just talking about juniors and seniors in high school in Horry County, because by that time it's a little bit too late maybe to start thinking about college. It's never too late, right. But you need to start talking to those students when they're 7th, 8th, 9th graders, when they start taking those aptitude tests and trying to figure out what it is that they want to do. And you're so right. It has to start younger. You have to get into those middle schools and talk about what options there are, because the economy is going to benefit in our country those people that make the investment in themselves in those post-secondary opportunities, whether it is that certificate or 2-year degree or the 4-year degree. The other thing I'll say too, April, is, I tell students all the time, life happens. I meet more adult learners that maybe stopped out after 90 credit hours because they got married, they got pregnant, they started having a family. They had to support an aging parent, and whatever we can do to reach back out to them. And it is a little intimidating for a 35-year-old to come back on college campus after being gone for 15 years. But tell them, hey, maybe we could do it remotely. Maybe you could do an online program. Maybe we can do some weekend classes or evening classes where you can come back and get that degree and finish up with 20 more credit hours and you get your bachelor's degree. And you'll be amazed at the prospects that will be available to people, regardless of the degree. But as you know, our society rewards those folks that have that certificate. And what can we do to help them? You know, as a historian, I find it fascinating that in 2 episodes in our nation's history, when our country was kind of at a fulcrum moment in our American experience, what was it that we did in terms of investment in our people? The first was the Civil War, 1862. In the midst of the Civil War, 1863, Abraham Lincoln, just I want to say 9 weeks after the Battle of Antietam, which was the single bloodiest day in the history of the war, signed the Morrill Land-Grant Act, which created state universities throughout our country. There were 2 iterations. Another one came in 1890, which established all the HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities. So in the midst of the Civil War, with blood and carnage facing all around us, Abraham Lincoln signed into law this monumental piece of legislation. Now, fast forward about less than a century, and 18 days after D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, Franklin Roosevelt signs into law the GI Bill, which is, if you serve your country, when you get out of the military, we are going to pay for your education. That is the single greatest benefit we could give to you as a way to say thank you. And I'm sure if I asked the both of you, if you had friends, relatives, acquaintances are the beneficiaries of the GI Bill, look at those 2 experiences, 2 presidents from 2 political parties, 2 episodes in our history, and the investment in education in the most trying of circumstances, the Civil War, World War II. So when I hear this argument sometimes from state legislators, we can't invest in education right now, it's just too hard. My response is always to look back to Abraham Lincoln or look at Franklin Roosevelt and look at what those 2 gentlemen did with all their colleagues in investing in human capital in the form of education.
It's almost as if, I'm sorry, it's almost as if, both of them had some insight into the fact that either of those groups could have easily become marginalized and really have.
Yeah.
Think about it, we're talking about 2 groups that still have a lot of struggles when it comes to education.
Yeah.
And so, those options were created almost as like a look into the future.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes. We've got a number of comments, Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like to display them later on, but if you don't mind, just want to show some appreciation to some of our sponsors and some of the people who assist us. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll be right back.
Do you need to complete your diploma or get your GED? Stop putting your future on hold. Contact the Horry County Adult Education Centers today. With 2 offices in Conway and Myrtle Beach, you'll be well on your way to a new career. The Conway Education Center is at 843-488-6200, or the Myrtle Beach Family Learning Center is at 843-839-5400. You can also visit the website at hcae.horrycountyschools.net. Heating unit not working? Need answers right away? Call Quick Services Heating and Air Conditioning for comfort in a hurry. Quick Services Heating and Air LLC is the right choice for you. Call Kenya and Nina Keith at 843-488-1492. Residential or commercial financing available. You can also visit their website at www.quickserviceshvac.com. That's KWIK serviceshvac.com. Quick Services Heating and Air LLC, the right choice for you. Serving Horry County for over 79 years, Palmetto Chevrolet in downtown Conway has just what you need to find new roads. Come through and browse, make your selection, and find new roads right away. Palmetto Chevrolet, 1122 4th Avenue, downtown Conway. You can also visit palmettochevrolet.com or call the service center at 843-248-4283. Palmetto Chevrolet, find new roads. Matthew and Beatrice Rue left a rich legacy of funeral home services in the capable hands of Atu and Tammy Williams. Ocean View Funeral Homes and Cremation Services, with 2 chapels serving the Horry County area. They offer full-service funeral and cremation services with no hidden fees. Call for details. The Conway Chapel is 843-248-5376. The Myrtle Beach Chapel is 843-916-8929. They offer affordable, professional, and caring full-service packages. Ocean View Funeral Homes and Cremation Services.
You know, small businesses is what is keeping our country afloat. Everybody knows that. So I just want to show a little bit more appreciation with no sound behind it, but these people keep us afloat, and I would be remiss.
Having problems with your vehicle? For quick, prompt, and courteous service, call Snag and Drag Towing. Gregory Graham will make sure that you're taken care of right away. 843-997-0751. That's Snag and Drag Towing Service at 843-997-0751. If you're looking for flowers for any occasion, the Daisy Fair Flowers is here to help you. They offer an enormous selection of flowers, gift baskets, and live plants for delivery in Conway, South Carolina. Serving Conway since 1980, the Daisy Fair Flowers, 1400 4th Avenue in Conway, or call 843-248-7222. You may also visit the web at thedaisyfairflowers.com. Looking for a full-service funeral home with a broad array of services? Look no further than McKeever Funeral Home at 1408 Race Path Avenue in Conway, South Carolina. They offer a wide variety of services, including traditional funerals, memorial services, and graveside ceremonies. You can reach them anytime, day or night, at 843-248-2706. That's 843-248-2706. McKeever Funeral Home in Conway, South Carolina. George L. Williams Jr. is CEO and licensed funeral director. Support the party that supports you. Vote for your own interests and those of your community. The choice is clear. Horry County Democratic Party. Take a stand. Register to vote 2020. This advertisement is paid for by the Horry County Democratic Party.
You know, we would be remiss if we didn't show some of the comments from some of our ardent viewers, and we'd like to, if you will, and we'll come back with some more questions. But just let me give you a quick summary. The bulk of the comments were just range from so happy to be listening in and welcome Dr. Benson. A lot of welcomes you got.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's appropriate. So one from our councilman, our city councilman, what can be done about on-campus housing? I see a lot of new housing coming up on 544 and in other places. Is that adequate?
Good question, and I look forward to meeting the council member as the times are appropriate. This, of course, pandemic has put all of us in difficult circumstances in terms of communicating this way, but I'm a huge believer that you look somebody in the eye and shake their hand, and there's no better way to get to know someone. So I look forward to doing that with all the listeners today. The housing along 544, some of that's private, some of it is university sponsored or sanctioned. As you know, we have a requirement for freshmen and sophomores to live on campus unless they live within a certain radius and can live at home. But that's so important, that first year experience and enabling students to become part of a community by living on campus and eating meals with their classmates and and creating these living learning communities is really essential. I think we're okay right now with housing. The pandemic certainly has reduced our numbers somewhat, but I have to commend our entire team, our COVID response team, for what an amazing job they've done. When I was interviewing back in the fall, I watched the Coastal Comeback, the videos that talked about and kept students apprised of what was happening with the plans and the social distancing and spacing throughout campus. And having contracted COVID this last week, I'm a huge believer that it can touch anybody. But we've somehow created on our campus a relatively kind of an island in a sea of COVID, as it were. We've had very few cases in terms of, I want to say, 400 positive cases since June of last year. We had a little bit of a spike this year with staff, and fewer with students than we had with staff, and I'm among that staff number. But I've followed all the protocols that they set out for me in terms of isolating, making sure the contact tracing was done, and all those people that I came into touch with were tested, and I'm happy to say all of them are negative. So, our goal is to create that on-campus living experience for our first-year students that makes them want to retain and graduate. And that fall to fall retention number. So if a student enrolls in the fall, the following fall are they still enrolled? And I'm happy to say this year, from our fall to spring, we were at 90.1% of our retention rate, which is superb. We'd love to be 100%, but some people had to go back home or leave for various reasons. So we understand that, but that on-campus experience in the residence halls is so important to retaining students and helping them persist and to graduate.
That's great. There's just one, I think it's a very important comment. All the comments are very good. There's this one that's it's from Miss Carolyn Hickman Williams. So, will free tuition be available for senior citizens at CCU? We didn't touch base on that, but I thought it'd be a good question there.
That is a very good question. I know some states have, whether it's called elder hostel, or if you're a certain age, you can come back and take classes for free. You can audit classes. I'm not sure what our policy is, so I'm not going to make something up. I don't want to in any way put out disinformation. So let me follow up with that. And Carolyn, I can track down your contact information, but I will find out and I will get back to you. But you look at the growth in Horry County in terms of the retirees, the people who are moving here, the folks that would love to come on campus and take advantage of the classes that we offer. And you think about it, we're going to teach a class regardless sometimes of how many students are in it. There may be some that won't carry if you don't have the proper enrollment or enough enrollment. But why not invite the older population, the more seasoned population that wants to come back and take a class or two? So I will follow up on that and get back to you.
Okay. The question of minority enrollment at CCU. How will you engage with the Horry County schools to ensure that the minority students in the community are college ready? You may have touched base a little bit on that earlier, by not mentioning the word minority, but in terms of college ready, recruitment, receiving grants and scholarships, and there's equity there,
right.
Stuff like that.
Well, first off, I'm a huge believer that your campus, in many ways, should mirror your population in terms of proportionality and representation, not only in senior administration, but at the deans, the professor level, and in your students. So where are we in terms of our underrepresented minority populations in terms of the number? I know we've increased over the last several years. We still need to do more. But to your point, Edward, it's a matter of getting into the high schools, talking to those students that maybe don't have a tradition in their family or in their homes of going to college, and making sure it's not intimidating. It's not something that they should shy away from, but we're here to help them. And that we bring advisors with us and those counselors that can talk to them and speak to them, not only their high school counselors, but the ones that we have on campus. And again, it's creating that support network that when they set foot on campus, they may look around and say, no, there are students that look like me and do come from my background and can relate to me. And I have roommates that get it and they understand what it's like to go home on weekends and so forth. So that's a key component of what we want to do moving forward, is to make sure our campus is representative of our community in terms of the numbers of our student population that represents everybody.
When your first time leaving a state like Utah, which was what, 98% non-minority, right, or 99, something like that. What was your first impression? What grabbed you the most when you went to other academic arenas?
Yeah, I mean, Utah is pretty homogenous. I'm not sure what the number is, but you're probably right. It's probably in the 90s. Growing up in Texas, it was a much more diverse community. In Kentucky, even more so, and now in South Carolina. And as I said, growing up in a family where we were taught to appreciate everyone and different perspectives and backgrounds, I am trying to inculcate that in my own children, that we all learn when we're surrounded by this rich tapestry of various experiences and perspectives and backgrounds. And I am a huge believer that the classroom is made better, a boardroom is made better, decisions by a president's cabinet are all made better by as many divergent opinions from as many diverse people as possible. I try to kind of emulate that in my own professional career and giving those opportunities to people just like opportunities were given to me. But you're exactly right, Edward. It has to happen on a college campus, and we're trying our best to make it happen at Coastal.
Okay, you mentioned earlier that, unless you want to say something, April, but you mentioned earlier that, as we can see right now visually, you're sandwiched between, and so we're not going to squeeze you. We're going to keep this at we're not going to understanding your plight with the COVID. Is another reason. So we're going to keep this at an hour. So we'll give our my co-host any remarks she wants to say, and so that we can.
Yeah, I do have. Well, I actually have a couple of questions, but I'm sure that we would have an opportunity to talk to you again, and we've been having some conversations offline. But I think one of the things that we're facing right now, especially in light of COVID, is the fact that we've had to adjust and become really creative about learning deliveries and learning modules and methods. And most of it, of course, has been online. If it were not for online and remote learning, I don't know what we all would have done, even from the standpoint of services. But at the same time, we're dealing with a lot of gaps because of COVID, learning gaps, which is, part of the, I guess, the challenge that we are facing. Have you had a chance to think about how Coastal will address those learning gaps, especially for the incoming freshmen who are missing out on some pretty critical instructional time and social time and things that want them to develop to become ready to even step out and become a college student? Have you thought about those things, or has that not been in the 25 days?
No, I think that's an excellent point. Think about how much you learn outside the classroom, the social interchange and the appreciation of differences, and kind of acclimating oneself in different environments and circumstances, and being empathetic and understanding. And so many students now have been robbed of that because they're at home, they're maybe with some kind of caretaker or supervision. I think about the technological gap that exists in our society, where not all children have access to Wi-Fi or to a laptop or to an iPad. Yeah, so they're going to be that much farther behind when we come out of COVID. And so I do worry about our incoming students in the fall. We're trying our best, April, to be as safe as we possibly can this semester, with a view toward, we hope, ramping things back up come the fall, because so much of what learning happens and how it, I call it the magic. When the magic happens, yes, it's in the classroom, it's with that full-time faculty member, but it's with your classmates.
It's right.
It's learning how to get along with a roommate. It's learning how to carry on a conversation over the dinner table. And so much of that, it is that traditional college age college-aged experience for a lot of students, but also for the distance learners. And you're exactly right. I think we've gotten better. And look, I've taught online. I've taken classes online. I've had good experiences. I've had not so good experiences. I think we're getting better. And it's not just a matter of, okay, here's my course. I'm going to take it and put it online. There's a real skill and art form to doing it and doing it well. And the classes that I've taken that have had, the discussion boards where you may disagree with your classmates, and you will, but you do it respectfully. You do it in a way that respects other people's opinions and values them. And I think, online delivery, online education is here to stay. We're getting better at it, but we still, I think, have a ways to go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Look, it's winding down. We've had this has been a valuable hour of information, especially for our youth who are contemplating higher education, and you've made it easier for them to navigate the process. This is from my perspective, to navigate the process of attending Coastal Carolina University, and with that process in the other university, I mean, with the knowledge that you've given them. So we certainly appreciate your taking the time, especially in dealing with the COVID. I really didn't expect you to once we found out that you were positive, I didn't expect you to be on today, but I appreciate it. I think I can speak for April. We appreciate that very much. And hopefully what you said today and the comments you've gotten will hopefully be having good impact on our communities, and serve as an attraction for our youth to secure higher education, and doesn't have to go all over the United States for it.
Yeah.
Okay. You got Horry Georgetown Tech right there with April. April, make sure that they get it.
I'm the jobs lady.
And then you got Coastal Carolina with you right there. So now I feel sandwiched. Okay.
You must be hungry, Brother Edward. You keep talking about sandwiches.
Well, he brought it up.
It is dinner time, isn't it?
It's past dinner time. Yeah, you've got to go eat, President. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, I met your president. She's delightful, Murph, and you're so fortunate to have someone so committed to working together. And Edward, to your point, we're all in this, I believe, to help each other. And if I've been able to offer, I hope, a word of encouragement tonight to that high school or that junior high student that may be listening, college can be daunting. It can be a little intimidating, but we're a place, I can tell you, where you can succeed. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to write the papers and take the tests. But we're going to do everything we can to put you in a position to be successful. And
well, we want you to know that whenever you have issues or concerns that you think you have to get out to the community, we'll be the platform, and you're always welcome.
Well, thank you.
Okay. You're always welcome to disseminate, and my favorite word is propagate.
Propagate. Favorite word, propagate.
Propagate information out. And we didn't, had a host of other questions, but in the interest of time. But to our viewers, we thank you very, very much for viewing in today. And again, thank you, Dr. Benson. And so we'll April, any closing remarks? None?
Just reminding everyone, please stay safe, stay cautious. COVID is very much alive and real. And so mask up, wash your hands, practice social distancing. And, let's just do what we've got to do so that we can overcome this challenge.
Very good. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Good night. God bless you and bless our audience, our viewers. Godspeed. We'll see you next week, same time, 7 p.m. All right, on Facebook, YouTube, and WCMagazine.net.
Thank you for watching the Whittemore Community Magazine live on Facebook, You can watch a rebroadcast of this episode by visiting WCM Live on YouTube.